Oh man,
Right.
here we go.
What's
Welcome everyone to another edition of A Place at Home's LinkedIn Live. I'm so excited to be with you. As always, my name is Mitch Benson, and I'm the franchise development manager here at A Place at Home. And today, I'm joined by CEO and co-founder Dustin Distefano. What's up, Dustin?
what's up, Mitch?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just out here to selfishly tighten up my skills and what I tell people when I answer the question, how do you start a non-medical home care agency in 6 easy steps? Right.
Shoot, man, I had here why you started.
Oh yeah. Well, we sure can talk about why,
Pull that out.
Well, here, this is exactly what we needed was the little training in the background here, but that's what we're here to talk about, is stuff that we get to share with candidates, with individuals interested in this industry literally every day. How do we do this stuff, right? And if you talk to me about that, then the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is Dustin Distefano and the operations team and everybody else, after the development joyride that is the experience of our candidates. But when we think of starting any business, right, it's just there's a lot going on, right? There's so much there. And to some folks, that's the exciting part, to kind of take in this massive information. Other folks are looking for a playbook, a little bit more risk reduction, a little bit more straightforward this, then that will get you on the right path. The aim of today's conversation is to ask an individual with over 10 years experience starting and managing other home care agencies how we get it done in 6 steps. Dustin, you ready?
I think so.
I think so. I think you're well qualified for this. I think
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
just hope
learn.
we just started. We just started another three. They're all here for training, so we've done it a few
Yeah,
times.
that's exactly right. If we could see it in the back here, we've got a training class full of folks who are here to do just this, and that's to start that business after in their own markets, right? So let's think about it a little bit here. When we start on the steps, 6 in total, right here. Um, I think of essentially the first step is really more introspected than anything, right? It's deciding why we want to start this business, right? That's how I want to start here. That's the thing that I get to talk to people all the time about is why do you want to do this, right? So Dustin, when you were in this space of your career starting this business and you thought about why this is right for you, what were you thinking about?
Well, the first thing is, well, why did I start the business? We're
Yeah.
going way back then. Well, right back then, a lot of people who followed us on LinkedIn, I was in travel nurse recruiting prior to this, and worked for Enterprise for about 5 to 6 years. So that was a long time ago now.
Yeah.
Um, why I started getting into this is after my career with Enterprise and starting my travel nursing, I wanted to look into maybe starting my own business. That's step one. Find
Mm,
out what you want to do, right? And I'm getting to how I found it. At the same time I was doing that, we had some things happening with my great grandmother. She
mhm,
was moved into a nursing home. She didn't want to be there. She wanted to be at home. That's the long story short.
mhm.
And that created a why for me. And so then I
Yeah.
said, what kind of business can be built around that? So I started Googling. And looking around, and I saw this massive $1 billion industry
Mhm,
that there was a lot of key players in the industry here in Omaha with Home Instead and Right at Home.
mhm.
And I said, wow. So I actually started looking at franchises. I actually applied at Home Instead to be a franchise business coach.
Nice.
Went all the way through their interview process, and they went a different direction. Whoops.
Mhm.
And then I'm just kidding. Actually, the best thing that happened because then I said I'm going to go start my own. So
Mhm.
then I started my own with Jared, obviously, and everyone knows that story as well. And that was the first creation. We sat down, we scaled it, we put a business plan around it, and we said, all right, this is how we're going to do it. This can make money,
Mhm.
and this is what we want to do. This is what
Yeah.
we're passionate about, and that's the
Yeah.
that's the first step that
Yeah.
anyone needs to do. If you don't want to do senior care, right? If you're asking
Mm.
yourself, if you're watching this and you say the 6 steps to starting a non-medical, if you don't see yourself answering the phones,
Mhm.
problem solving people's issues, helping seniors in a very frail state, dealing with family dynamics, recruiting constantly, and you can't see yourself being driven to do that because you want to make a difference every day, it's probably not the best industry for you. So just eliminate steps 2 through 6 because it's not right.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's huge. Think of how much time someone was saved if, truthfully, another industry is better for them, whatever that looks like. But I love how you do that. You visualize yourself there. Is this what you want? And it can stem back from the end result. Like you said, you had a family experience. People close to you needed this solution, and so you could kind of go right to the end of the process when the user was getting this from us, and say like, hey, is that important enough for me to go through all these steps to give that to other families? And when going through a process like a Place at Home's franchise development process, you get to see really what that looks like and get to put yourself in those shoes you just described. Is that the thing that I want to do? If not, hey, no harm, no foul. There may be something else that's better for you, and let's go chase that. That's fine. But I think this is it, because if we don't answer yes to step 1, we don't get 2 to 6, right?
I mean, we just had that big discovery day, a few months ago, and they didn't. I mean, they wasted their time and went through a full blown 6-step process to find out that they can't see themselves doing this, and ultimately walked away, which was best for us too, because once you get started and there's no turning back, it's very hard to just close up because you just invested a bunch of money into it. So you got to know that you want to do this. You got to develop your why, and you got to be passionate about this industry. That's step 1.
Absolutely. And be transparent and honest with yourself, so that when you do make this investment, which is a big deal, you can throw yourself at it and be sure that you're doing everything you can to be successful, because that's what it's going to take, right? And when you've kind of like looked inward and said, this is for me, I get it, I know what the solution is, I want to put my name to that and give it to more families. I know why I want to do this, and I feel confident about that. Then we kind of start talking about, well, okay, so how are we going to do that? And I've got a couple, sub bullets here to step 2, which I'll essentially say, kind of set your goals, right? If you know why you want to do this, then what do you want to achieve, right? What is this thing? And it can kind of start a little bit with your research and your market analysis, right? Is my area is what I think I can do where I want to do it, a prime spot, right? As you kind of look at that, as you're researching, maybe let's talk about the market, right, itself. Dustin, what tips do you have for folks as they think about that? What should they be looking for, or at least generally thinking about when researching their market?
Well, you obviously want to have a good population to be successful. What people got to understand is senior care is not for everybody. I hate to say it, it's kind of I would blame the government resources towards private duty and home care are very little. Insurance resources are also very little at this moment. So it's technically, I would put it as a luxury service. So you got to make sure people can afford it. So you have to look for affordability. So what we like to do is look at median household income. Right now, you can go, and that's not to say you're not going to service the low income, because low income can be on Medicaid waiver, but there are a lot of states where agencies that, employ their employees, their W-2 employees, they have administrative costs, they have rent, they do this, they do that, all those overhead costs. You're paying, average rate today at our system's over $30 an hour. Well, to put that in quick math, even if you were a 20-hour-a-week client, at $30 an hour, that's $600 a week. I mean, that's a second mortgage. That's pretty comparable to what, actually, that's affordable when comparing it to assisted living. But you got to be able to find that people can, fundability is a big part of the market that you want to look at. If they have a really good Medicaid waiver, that's another thing I would look at. Do they have look at their government resources? Do they have a very good Medicaid waiver? I mean, Nebraska was a very good Medicaid waiver state. I think they reimburse right now around $30 to $30 an hour, which is one of the best in the country.
Huge improvement.
Oregon is a pretty good Medicaid waiver state. Trying to think of any others. It's really hard for Medicaid waiver. But
and that's just it. You're kind of just the patchwork of it too, right? So it's non-uniform, that there could be something in your area different than someone else.
Yeah, it's definitely a state by state, sometimes county by county.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you want to look at is, and actually a lot of people look at this, and I suggest not to look at it, right? And that is your competition, right? So many times, I mean, Mitch, you're in franchise development, and so many times people are going to be like, well, there's just so many providers around me. Yeah, there are. What's your point, right? Are you going to go in and just think this is going to build itself? Are you going to have the mindset of saying, oh, I'm going to take advantage of a no competition? Guess what? If you were to start a no competition state and do well, you're going to get competition in the future, right? So I hate that comment that the market is saturated. There's so many seniors to be taken care of. If you have the right processes, you have the right culture, and you build the right business around it, you could be successful in any market. I mean, me and Jared did it here in Omaha, and we had 50 to 60 home care agencies around us. We were 28-year-old guys, and the first couple of weeks we were out marketing. Who the hell are you two, right?
Yeah.
And 10 years later, I mean, we have 32 locations nationwide by way of franchising. So don't be discouraged by market. Again, look back at your number one, your why. And if you have a passion to do this, that will be fine, and that will compete against market saturation.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I could just take that out, right? If you're worried about, competition in your market, so long as your why is solid and it can build magnetic culture, then that can compete against so-called saturated markets. That's huge. And I hope that goes to heart for a lot of folks on the call today. It's a big piece of this, right?
Sure.
But that's it. So you're researching the business, your market, and you're setting goals here, right? You're kind of saying, okay, this is what I want to do here. And before we, get to kind of not just what we want to do, but how we're going to get there, I always suggest to folks, when you set a goal here, sometimes you have to use a little bit of two-step math to figure out what you kind of want your business to be, right? If someone asks you, well, how successful do you want to be? You just say, well, very successful, like not medium success. I'm looking to, do really well here, right? Well, I always help people kind of understand that, let's talk about replacing your income that you're making right now, right? Maybe you think of that as a goal. I wanted to essentially pay my bills the way I'm doing now with this new business that I own. Or perhaps you want more time with your family, right? You want to invest a little more heavily into the business, have some more hands on deck so you could take a step back. That could be. Or perhaps you're in it to, build a successful business that can then be sold to the next generation of entrepreneurs coming in to take it to the next level. If a profitable exit is your goal too, that can help you go into conversations with people like Dustin or other franchise business coaches out there and say, look, this is the end in mind. This is how we get there, right? So if there's anybody out there looking for their goals too, these are some strategies to think about that, right? But let's say we have all that, right? We know it in our hearts that senior care is right for us. We're right for the industry. We've researched our market. We've, combated competition. We know that we can be successful. Essentially, the third step when I think of this is developing our marketing strategy, right? Dustin, you've touched on a little bit here too, right? But this is how you're going to, get your clients who need your service, how you're going to attract your caregivers who can provide that service to your clients, right? What are some things that we can share for folks to think about when taking this third step, developing their marketing strategy?
Well, first, you got to understand your market. Again, going back to why you do what you do, and then you have to build a brand around that, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're with a franchise, like a place at home, we have a brand. We still grab your why and develop that because that's the story you're going to share with your community. When you're out doing marketing to social workers, discharge planners, other providers in this area, the first thing they're going to ask you is why are you in this business? What got you into this? Right? It's very easy. That's the very easiest icebreaker question is what did you do before this and why did you get into this, right? Or what's your experience? It's gonna be the number one question when you first meet somebody in this industry. So you got to develop that. All right. Then after you develop that, your marketing strategy is you got to pinpoint, right? Like make a calendar. Like maybe on Mondays I'm going to focus on home health. Maybe on Tuesdays I'm going to focus on rehabs. Maybe on Wednesdays I'm going to focus on hospice. Maybe on Thursdays I'm going to focus on other private duty home care agencies and go out and introduce myself. And then on Fridays, I'm going to come in and I'm going to enter all that information into my CRM so that I can start managing those relationships through that. So that's one thing. It's easy to come in and just get a book, right? You can get a senior resource book right out of the gate and just start calling people. But you really want to pinpoint. The next thing you want to be able to do is after that first round of meetings, right? Your first couple months, you're just meeting anybody and everybody who's going to meet you.
Right.
You get your first meeting in home care, you're like, ooh, I'm excited. And you go there and they shut you down, right? They have a relationship with somebody. They just don't see how it could work. That's okay. A lot of people did that to myself and Jared too. But you got to start finding, eventually you're going to find people who are bought into you, right? And so then you got to focus on them. A lot of people focus on, their egos get hurt. So they really focus on, I'm going to make it right by them. Don't worry about them. You can't partner with everybody, right? So find your 10 to 12. And as soon as you really focus on those first 10 and you start getting leads from those first 10, then those first 10 will start spreading the word to other communities. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's pinpoint your marketing strategy and understand who you're going after, who you're targeting. And then you also got to develop your ask, right? Because what a home care agency does is different for almost any, like if I'm going to go to home health, I'm going to talk about how we can support them at home and continue their PT and OT at home and hold our clients accountable to stop unnecessary readmissions and improve their outcomes. Bam. Home health.
Nailed it.
Right? Hospice. I'm going to go and talk to hospice companies that, hey, a lot of people's misconception about hospice is that they're there all around the clock 24/7. We know that's not the case here at A Place at Home, that you guys are in there for pain management. So we ask for you to refer us when any family's going through a struggle of taking care of their mom and dad, or they're just calling you constantly as a hospice agency, or they're a danger to themselves when they're alone. Think of us, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to understand your audience too. It's not going to be the same for everybody. So you got to find those carrots.
Yeah.
That's the information I just gave.
Yeah. Well, I think it's helpful. Like, you're not only telling us like who the focus of your marketing strategy is, but I think you've given us this, an idea of scope too. Is it 100 partners out there in the market? That's not true. Just as if we were selling a widget or something like that, we can't sell it to everyone on the planet. No one can. That's not part of it. Give yourself a realistic scope of relationships that you need to develop that will eventually get you to the individuals who need your service. Right? Get real with yourself. Use Dustin's advice: 10 to 12 of those power partners that you're really going to use and pinpoint in your marketing strategy. Right? If you're an individual kind of getting all this together on your own, that kind of research could be exciting for you, just figuring out who these folks are. But if you're partnering with the franchise, perhaps they have some of that information already, or some tips and tricks on who to look for, or what kind of conversations, what kind of individuals and companies you could target to have those conversations. Right?
You're talking like a 13 video series called Care Sales that all franchise owners get access to watch yours truly show you how to go out and pitch these locations.
Yeah. In every franchise system, or no, just the one A Place at Home franchise. How about that? Right.
Other franchise systems might try to copy it. I've been asked for it. Can't sell it today.
That's just it. I think a lot of folks here too are seeing that too. Do you want to put that work into, independent business, or are you ready for the playbook? Like you said, a library done by individuals who did these sales calls before. That could be your marketing strategy. Buy into it from someone
who got
else.
Beat up before, right? Man. Well, that's the other thing. You got to have a backbone to get in this.
Yeah. Well, and nowhere else maybe does a backbone come into play than maybe the fourth step of really getting this business started, and that's taking a good look at funding. Right? Ooh. Man, we've talked about all this fun stuff so far. Why do I want to get in this business? Let's research the market and find our niche. Let's pinpoint the folks who can use our service. But do I have enough money for this stuff? Oh man. We were having fun until now. Like, geez, what's the importance of doing that? Why do we need to think about funding?
Well, because you can close as fast as you start. We know exactly how much money you need with a franchise. Our investment includes franchise fees. But if you're going to start an independent, you're still going to need a good amount of capital. And how you judge when you ask the question, how much do I need? You got to ask yourself the question, what do you value? Because you said it earlier, Mitch, if you're trying to replace your income, you're starting a business. you're not going to replace that income anytime soon unless like you had not, you didn't have any income, that much income to start,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the thing is that you can build towards that income. So what a lot of people do is they'll cake in a salary, maybe a $50,000 to $60,000 salary, so they can eat into a loan,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can
Yeah.
cake that in there. The other thing is that you have your rent. I wouldn't advise this to be a home business. Not good. I can share a quick story. We started out in my basement, and it was very uncomfortable. I was 28 years old, and the caregivers are predominantly female, and we started out in my basement. So let's put on the 1990s hat and look at now the 2020 hat. A girl walk up to my house for an interview, and I offer her to come in the basement. Not very safe for either party, honestly. Who knows what they could say happened down there.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't recommend that. So you're going to have a rent cost. You're going to have insurance costs, and you're going to have what other costs? You're going to have admin costs as you grow. I always recommend you have a second person. We can talk about that maybe a little later. That's more of an operational, not a how you start, but an operational thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when looking at, you have a question here on self-financing, I'd put it at $150,000 to $200,000.
Mm-hmm.
Start it.
Yeah.
Effectively.
Yeah, you're baking in costs for your business, costs for your living expenses outside of that, and I think you really put what's at risk, in perspective here. That you can open or you can close as fast as you can open, right? It's just like that. If you're not well capitalized, it doesn't matter what you chose to do. You didn't give yourself enough runway to really put what you're good at, which is making this happen, marketing, connecting services to those who need it. You just didn't give yourself enough time. Nobody can escape that kind of gravitational, pull. You need to give yourself enough runway to take flight. And if you get to this fourth step and you realize there are some big questions that still need to be answered, it's not that your dream is crushed or you're rejected from the world of entrepreneurship. It's that your story just gets a little longer, right? You go to step 4.2 and 0.5 and things like this, right? And you continue to build answers to the questions. Well, how much do I need? How can I get it? Am I well capitalized to start that business, right? Because it has to happen. And you need these kinds of funds to take care of all of course, the fun expenses like bringing on admin staff, making your first payroll, seeing the real part of your business move forward, which is exciting because you know that you're creating it. But you also have some not so fun costs, which helps me kind of describe the fifth step that we need here, which is obtaining our license to operate this business, right? Several businesses, and industries have whatever kinds of regulation that need to be essentially met to start your business in your state or whatever that looks like. Home care is no exception, right? So is this a fairly straightforward process, Like, what do you think, Dustin? Is this something that we really need to think of as a whole fifth step in our process?
Did you almost call me Jared?
I almost called you Jared. I was super close to calling you Jared.
No.
Jared, I mean, it was J-E and everything,
I heard it. Sure. I was like, ooh.
All
All
right.
right. Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
What was the question now?
So it's derailed. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, yes. If you're in a state, you're going to want to look into your licensing. You can Google it, or you can call DHHS and ask them what type of licensure.
Mm-hmm.
Every state's different. I honestly am a proponent to licensure. I think it creates a barrier to entry, and it's one of those things that I talked about earlier. Like there's a lot of competition. Well, in states that don't have licensure, you're gonna have a boatload of competition because anybody can do it, right? In states that have licensure, there's barriers. You're gonna have to create policies, procedures. You're gonna have to know what you're. You're gonna have to know what you're doing. You can't just fake it till you make it, right? And so I'm a big proponent of those. I think some states are a little over the top.
Yeah.
Some states have stopped issuing licenses. Some states you have to show a certificate of need, that there's an actual need for home care, which we've done in the lovely state of Louisiana. Still working through that process now, but hey, we finally got that piece of paper. So if you're down in Louisiana, that one's a tough one. But when you're dealing, let's talk a little bit about what you're dealing with in a licensure state. What does a licensure state do? You have to fill out an application. Step one. That goes into DHHS, which is highly underemployed, and you get put in a queue, right? Now, it can go quick, or it can take 6 months, or it can take a year in some states. Some states that are very hard, Colorado, Louisiana, very hard. New Jersey takes a long time. California has gotten better from what you've heard, right?
Yeah,
You
certainly.
probably know the states because you talk about states all the time better than I do. Those are the ones that come to mind as the hard ones.
Yeah.
New York, extremely hard. We don't even offer franchises up there. Yeah, what am I missing, Mitch? Any other ones?
Yep. It's there. I think you hit on it. Certificate of needs are big deals.
Yeah.
The District of Columbia comes to mind
Sure.
in states with stringent things like that, right? And we bring this up, right? Because not unlike the very first step, that if you don't have a why connecting to this process, you don't get the rest of the steps. If you get to number 5 and you're unprepared to engage in a licensing process, you're likely spending money depending on what your expenses looked like. You're spending most definitely your time in this process. If you quit a job to do this and we weren't prepared, or we didn't think about what this was going to look like, then you have some choices to make in the very short term, right? That's why we bring it up. We as a franchise system always know that this is going to happen. That there's only about one big thing that really can change the timeline of starting your home care business as we see it. This is it. Therefore, we must take a pretty good look at it and at least set expectations for everybody. Which is what this whole list is about, is setting your expectation on how to get this business started. And whether or not you're in a state that's straightforward without a license, medium, tempo, or even just a pretty intense licensing area, talk to your state representatives, understand the agency that oversees this, or if you have a franchisor who's heavily invested in it, ask us and we'll talk to you about it and set your expectation on how to get through this thing. Because you have to do it. You can't not do it.
And, if I can give any advice, unsolicited advice on licensing, is the key in a certificate of need state. Just because it's a certificate of need state doesn't mean they're not giving them. They'll give them, but you're going to have to work for it. And so if I can give some free advice here on that one, the best thing to do is reach out to a senator, congresswoman, or congressman or woman, and get them involved, show them a need. Other things that you can do are surveys. I mean, that's what we did in Louisiana. We went and called other home care agencies and asked them, have you ever turned down a client in the last year? Have you ever turned down a client? And I think we did that in Louisiana. I think 100% of the people who took that survey said, yes, we have turned down clients. That shows that there's a need. And if you can take that need and show it to the surveyor, you can push that along with getting a state representative involved. Because again, you're voting. You got to remember, your state representatives represent you. You voted for them. They want your vote. They want to hear the problems that you're having. So that is another, that's not on here, but I would throw that into the same step, is get involved in your local advocacy groups. There are so many home care associations. We have a good partnership with the Home Care Association of America. I'm on the board of the Nebraska State Home Care Association. I don't even operate in Nebraska anymore. That's Chris and Rick, but I like to be on that board because I like to advocate. And if you can get on that board, you can help advocate things like better licensure, better Medicaid reimbursement, right? So I think that's very, very important, is to start. And honestly, if you're going through this and you're not part of a franchise, those are great resources to reach out to when you're starting, because they can give you resources and contacts to certain agents, to certain resources to help you start.
Yeah. Huge. Lump all this into the regulatory 5th step, right? Be prepared to deal with it, be excited to engage with it, and offer your own perspective. Like, there's a lot there, right? And so as we round out the conversation into the 6th step of really starting this business, look back. You've determined that you are right for this industry. The industry is right for you, right? We've looked at all of your goal setting, looked at your market. You've developed a clear path to funding. You know what it takes to be regulatory, to jump through those hoops and get approved to operate here. And so essentially, you pretty much you are ready to open your doors, right? So at this point, the final step that we have here is all about the who in your business, right? Hire and get your caregivers ready to roll, right? Dustin, I think one question that comes to mind for here is when you're ready to open your doors, is it a chicken before the egg situation? Do you get caregivers? Do you get clients? Is it yes? All the above? What happens when we're ready to take all these steps and make it happen in step 6?
So that is the hardest thing for what I've seen franchise owners go through. Is they don't want to hire too many caregivers because they don't have any clients, or they don't want to market too much because they don't want to get a client, not have any caregivers. So my best piece of advice is you need time. When you're opening, you need to lengthen the amount of time. Now, here's the thing. Caregivers are getting contacted every hour. If a caregiver's resume is on Indeed and it's live and it's active, they're getting phone calls from hospitals, home health, home care agencies, staffing agencies, everywhere. They're getting blown up.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of people just are really quick. They hire really fast. So when you hire your first couple caregivers, what you need to be able to do is buy yourself time. So on day one, you do the interview, build the relationship with the caregiver, get your trust and their buy-in into your agency, step 1. And once they show up to the interview, which I see some owners on this thread right now, once they show up to the interview, they're serious.
Right.
They're not interested. They ain't showing up to your interview. So when they get to the interview and you make a hiring decision, they're excited about it. Try to do your interview on like a Thursday or Friday, right? Because then if you hire them on Thursday, you can say, hey, we're going to have orientation next Tuesday. What you just did is buy yourself 5 days of time, right? And you lengthen that out. Now they're going to get called as well. Now, one thing I would give advice to is ask your caregiver once they've been hired, do you have your resume live on Indeed? Well, yes, I do. What can I do today to get you to take that down? Right? You just accepted a position with me. I need you to take that down because I don't want my competitors or anyone just blasting you with text messages. I'm buying into you. I want you to just be me. We'll be text buddies. If you need a text to make you feel good, text me and I'll text you right now. Right. And so if you can get that, then that kind of stalls that out. Right.
Yeah.
Then you go 5 days. Then you have orientation, and that orientation, run your background check and then tell them you're ready to go, just pending background check. Then you bought another day or 2. So you've just had 7 days of time for that caregiver to be hired. When you have a couple of those when you have a couple of those going at the same time, you better be out there busting your ass marketing. You just got your 7 days of time, and if you can get a lead in that time frame, you can get it. I still remember my first 2. It was Asia Tolbert and Ashley Diggins. Those were my 2 first caregivers I ever hired. I still follow them on Facebook. And they still follow me on Facebook. Right. And Asia, I got a client. I was like, Asia, I just got you a client. I market her. So the benefit you have at the beginning is you're almost like a Jerry Maguire type relationship. You have 3 caregivers and all 3 of them. You're going to the client and saying, I got Asia, she's available nights. I got Ashley, she's available days. They have this, that, and the other. You go through their background and you're showing them the money. Right. And then they sign your services, bam, you got them a client. Then when you have those caregivers on service with one, then the second one comes, you can kind of use both of them to cross. Then you're hiring still 3, buying time. Then you go 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 7, 5, 9, 5, 10, clients 4, 5, 5, 4, someone passes away or goes off. And it's just like and then it's off.
Yeah. It's wise, and it kind of takes some sort of, an element of discipline as an entrepreneur to know that this is what's happening. And the time frame that you've shared with us is like 30 to, 30 days. So there's a lot happening in that first month. And if you can stay diligent, if you can stay, focused on your why, the reason that got you into this industry, sharing that with everybody at every turn, and taking this advice, knowing how to work with your caregivers so that when you say there's going to be an opportunity, there will be, because you've given yourself enough breathing room to go and connect with those clients who are going to be pleasantly surprised that you've already been doing this work with great caregivers that can connect them with services to their expectation as well, right? The person making that happen is the entrepreneur, right? And it's beautiful when it works because everybody's expectations were met, especially in the first part of your business, so that you can get that off the ground, right? And the only reason you got here The only way that you could do this into step 6, getting great caregivers through your business to connect it to excellent clients who need their service, is because you've gone through these 6 steps to start your non-medical home care business. You could do that alone, or you could do that with Dustin, right? Or with any kind of team that works best for you. You know, there's a lot of ways to get that done. Right.
Trained in the keys to success of opening.
That's right. You know, and as always, you know, if what we've described here resonates with you, reach out. Let's talk about it a little bit. There's a lot of ways to get great care to great clients who need it from you, and to connect caregivers who just love this work and are looking for opportunities. There's a lot of ways to get this done, and we want to help anybody make that happen for them. But more than anything, we hope that this answers some questions, some broad ones, like how do I start a home care agency? Well, as we've learned today from CEO and co-founder of A Place at Home, Dustin Distefano, there are about 6 steps with like 7 sub points each, right? Because there's a lot here, and it's really exciting. Dustin, I want to thank you so much for your perspective, your experience, and everything you shared with us today.
Awesome. And finally,
final thoughts.
I see a lot of franchisees still watching this. You have to be able to be adaptable to shifts in marketing and markets. So AI, I'm telling you guys right now, look into AI, because it's going to be a game changer in home care in the future.
There we go. Stay hip on the trends.
On the trends.
Yeah. Yeah. You heard it here in LinkedIn Live broadcast from A Place at Home every Tuesday. Stay tuned. Right next Tuesday, if we take this information Dustin and I discussed today of how to start your business, the next week with brand strategy specialist Anna Krieger, she and I will discuss what profitable home care agencies have in common. There's about 5 qualities that we want to uncover for you. And if you use all these 6 steps to start your business, then how do we aim toward profitable business? Tune in next Tuesday, same place, same time, same great taste to get the answers. And with that, we bid our viewers adieu. And Dustin, thank you so much. We'll see you next time. All right.
All right. Take it easy.
Sweet.
Bye.